And now for something that requires actual skill. This poem, titled New Year's Resolution, is by Philip Appelman. Well, I did it again, bringing in that infant purity across the land, welcoming innocence with gin in New York, waiting up to help Chicago, Denver, LA, Fairbanks, Honolulu, and now the high school bands are alienating Dallas, and girls in gold and tangerine have lost all touch with Pasadena, and young men with muscles and missing teeth are dreaming of personal fouls, and it's all beginning again, just like those other Januaries in Instant Reply. But I've had enough of turning to look back, the old post-morteming of defeat. People I loved but didn't touch. Friends I haven't seen for years. Strangers who smiled but didn't speak. Failures, failures. No, I refuse to leave it at that. Because somewhere, off camera, January is coming like Venus up from the murk of December, re-virginized, as innocent of loss as any dawn. Resolved. This year, I'm going to break my losing streak. I'm going to stay alert, reach out, speak when not spoken to, read the minds of people in the streets. I'm going to practice every day, stay in training, and be moderate in all things but love. Without holding back, immoderately, let us sing. All beautiful, the March of Days. Our first hymn is number 57. We join in the words of our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So be it. Good morning and welcome on this brisk morn. Welcome, of course, to those who are here for the first time and to those who have been here absolutely forever. And welcome to those who are visiting from, let's say, places like Prague. There are those among us doing that as well. Whatever your origin, wherever you're coming from, whatever is working or not working in your life, you are welcome here. And if you want to stay in touch with this congregation, there are blue cards in the pews that can be put in the offering basket, and that's a way of finding a little bit more out about who we are. At this time of year, we also report our membership to our Unitarian Universalist Association, and if any of you are curious about membership, signing our membership book, please speak with Megan or with me, and we can say a bit more about all of that. I did light a candle this morning because I think that we are all aware that as we speak, hundreds of thousands of people are gathering in Paris and in other places around the world to mourn and to resolve for unity. In our wayside pulpit on the Common, there is a poster today that says, "Je suis Charlie." And indeed, we are with those who practice their free speech, despite its consequences, even when offensive. But we are also Muslim. We are also Jewish. We are also Christian. We are also atheist. And we are all mortal. And so we certainly remember and mourn the victims of terror. But we are also recalled to our ideals and to the challenges of freedom. This morning, we especially welcome Bill Schulz, who will be our preacher today, and his wife, Beth Graham. I'll have a little more to say about Bill later. There are some announcements in the order of service, and I encourage you to take a look at those. Among other things, there is a parish council meeting at 12:45, so if you are part of a group, a committee, a task force that should be represented at that, please be there. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, there is a community service recalling the life of Martin Luther King Jr., and that takes place at the First Baptist Church on Concord Road. And those of you who are able to be there are most welcome to join in that service. I lit another candle as well, and this is to honor and to lament all of those lives and hours that are forever lost to football. And when we're all done here today, it would help a bit if you would look around and pick up a bit. We have a 2 o'clock memorial service taking place in this room. Let's see. Here we have this glass harmonica, and I think that the first order of business is to figure out what this thing is. And Brad, you're going to do a little tutorial for kids and teachers before they leave, and for all of us as well.
So here we go. Kids, if you want to come up, you can come up here. I guarantee I'll let you look at the instrument in a second. But for now, stay right here. I promised Elisa that I'd guard it with my life. So go ahead and have a seat right here, anywhere around here. Elisa gave a Lyceum in between the two services. It's been a very busy morning. She played the first service and then gave the Lyceum. Now she's going to play the second service. She gave lots of different names for this instrument. And the one that she prefers is the glass harmonica, not harmonica, but armonica, which comes out of the Italian for harmony. But also, I looked it up, and there is another name for this instrument, which I think those who like big words will enjoy this one. Let's see if I can get this right. It's called a hydrodactyl-psychic harmonica. Okay? It's spelled just like it sounds. Right. There are people who appreciated the instrument, and there were people who didn't appreciate the instrument. And there was an Italian priest and electrician who wrote about this instrument and said, the advantages of this instrument are that its tones are incomparably sweet. beyond those of any other, that they may be swelled and softened at pleasure by stronger or weaker pressures of the finger, and continue to any length, and that the instrument, once well tuned, never again wants tuning. But there were those people who thought that the glass harmonica was an evil instrument. And so they had not so choice words, but they thought that, in fact, that people who listened to the instrument would go insane. So if you walk out of here feeling a little queasy today, you'll know why. And in fact, in more than one performance, there was a woman in the audience who fainted because of it. So if you faint, just make sure you tell the person beside you you're going to faint so that they can take you out quietly. But the writings for that side against the harmonica is the harmonica excessively stimulates the nerves, plunges the player into a nagging depression, and hence into a dark and melancholy mood that is apt method for slow self-annihilation. If you are suffering from any kind of nervous disorder, you should not play it or listen to it. If you are not yet ill, you should not play it. If you are feeling melancholy, you should not play it also. So there were lots of people who wrote for this. There were lots of people who wrote for it, and including, have you ever heard of Mozart? He was a classical composer. Have you ever heard of Beethoven? Okay, well, you have now. Have you ever heard of Handel, another classical composer? Have you ever heard of Schulz or Schulz? So which one of those composers, for those who know, or even if you don't, do you think wrote for this instrument? Just give me one of them. Who do you think wrote for it? Yes, Beethoven wrote for it, Mozart wrote for it, Handel wrote for it, they all wrote for it. It was a very popular instrument. And in fact, the prelude was picked specifically because it was composed by a man named Schulz, spelled exactly the same way as Bill's name, which is rather interesting because it's sort of an odd spelling of the name, and therefore that's why Elisa picked it. Do you happen to know who invented it? Who? Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was one of those inventors, and it's the same concept as running your fingers over wine glasses. And he saw this and decided that, in fact, he would create the instrument. He invented it in Paris in 1761, and glass harmonica players have made sure that the house is forever marked with, this is where the glass harmonica was built. So also, if you'll look on it, it has gold, it's got the gold stripes on it. Do any of you play piano? You know what a piano looks like, right? Okay. So the little gold strips are the same as the black keys on the piano. So that's in fact how she knows where she is on the instrument. And not only that, someone asked me during the first service, how big is the instrument? Well, a piano is 8 octaves. It's 88 keys. And this is 3 octaves. So this is 33 notes. So that's, she said it can go up to 5 octaves, which weighs 1,000 pounds. I'm kidding, but not by much. But this has 33 different notes on it. So let's go up and take a very, very quick look before we go off to class, but don't touch anything. And you'll see that it rotates, and the reason it's rotating is just like when you have glasses, when you play on glasses and you get your fingers wet, and you have the motion of taking your finger around the glass. In fact, what happens here is that the instrument does the rotation for you so that, in fact, you can play lots of complex tunes on it. So that's it, and we'll let the kids and the teachers go off to their classes, and thank you guys for coming up.
As as so often we say, it's not like this every Sunday at First Parish. Welcome to the glass harmonica, and while kids and teachers go off to their ingathering, we will sing Dark of Winter. Our hymn is number 55.
Good morning. This is the time during the service when you're invited to come and light a candle of joy or concern. Please keep your comments brief and hold the mic so everyone can hear you. And I'll remain at the candle stand after the service for any silent candles you would like to light. Thank you. And I light this last candle for all the thoughts and cares we hold in our hearts.
Bill Schulz needs no introduction, and knowing that I'm doing the introducing, Bill would prefer no introduction. No such luck. Ordained in this room in 1975, Bill was our minister, rather briefly, and then president of the Unitarian Universalist Association for 2 terms. Subsequently, head of Amnesty International USA. The New York Review of Books once said that he has done more for human rights than anyone else, perhaps in the history of the world. And now he is president of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, UUSC. And somewhere in the very fine print on his CV, he has the kindness to say that he is also our First Parish's affiliated community minister. But that's not all, folks. Bill recently turned 65, and among other things, Beth asked some friends to describe Bill in 6 words. Here were some of my submissions. Anti-quotidian, propinquity to the status quo. That means an antagonistic and unordinary relationship to the way things are. Bill likes really big words. Puissant, Chrysostomatic, percipient, and globally peripatetic. A powerful, eloquent, perceptive, and world traveler. You're going to have to look up the 4th century preacher, John Chrysostom. Nary a lacuna in his logic. Lacuna means hole, and lacuna is one of Bill's favorite words. This one is a little bit more understandable. Gray goose up, twist of lemon. Therapy did him some good, you know? Splendid, 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 splendid is another of Bill's favorite words. Beth, however, was much more romantic. She said, Bill is the best part of my life. But I'm not done. There is something about Bill that makes me want to occasionally tease or annoy him. And so last fall, I planted a bug in his office in Cambridge. This little thing, about the size of a quarter, is an electronic device called an Eviltron. And you hide it someplace, and it makes really soft, weird noises. Like a rodent scratching, or a baby laughing, or someone whispering, "Hey, can you hear me?" Every several minutes, randomly, it makes these noises. It bugs the hell out of you. And I know because at the encouragement of a number of you, Megan planted one in my office. And so last September, I bugged Bill's office, and every several minutes it made one of these noises. And the galling thing is that Bill paid no attention whatsoever. He gave no indication that he was even aware that it was there. Now, I know this because I had his staff in on this plot, and they would have meetings in his office with whispering and scratching and giggling going on, and Bill did not betray a clue that he noticed. He refused to be pranked. And so eventually we gave up, we removed the bug and decided to bother somebody else. Bill can sometimes be no fun. The Reverend Dr. William F. Schulz is so focused on the work of human rights that he is imperturbable. Bill makes us proud every day. Really, truly, your turn, Mr. Chrysostomatic.
That was just splendid, John.
Just one?
Nary a lacuna in it. Thank you. The truth is, I am so tech incompetent. We had put a new software system in, and I just thought that this noise was part of the system. I thought to myself how annoying this is, but what do I know about software? The reading this morning is taken from a contribution that the Reverend Jane Rani Jepka made to a new book that is about to come out from Skinner House on aging and spirituality. The statue on my bureau is about 4 feet long, maybe a foot tall, all white, a Buddha. I bought him because he lies there radiating serenity in spite of his situation. When the post-polio symptoms began to lay me low, I thought he would be just the ticket, and he is. He's okay with being on death's door, and I like seeing that when I wake up in the morning. Of course, I'm not on death's door as far as I know, but that's the direction we're all heading as the birthdays accumulate, and as they do, we're going to have to take it down a notch. Myself, I'm aging precociously, so there's a lot I won't be doing. Mine is a reverse bucket list. Professionally, in the eyes of the world, I've preached enough sermons, attended enough meetings, taught enough classes. Move aside, Jane. It's not your turn anymore. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. The fact is that the world replenishes. Out with the old, in with the new. It turns out, however, that I celebrate this ultimate replenishment only in theory. The Buddha in my bedroom would not be pleased. The truth is, I can feel a touch of panic in the outskirts of my consciousness, not about dying, but about running out of time. Running out of time and feeling increasingly greedy for life. I still look forward. The main feature of the future, my future, is all the life-giving connections. How can I contain them all? A favorite spot on the ocean year after year after year, where the babies toddled and friendships deepened, and suddenly the babies have their own babies, and the grown-ups are gray and stiff as we navigate the rocks. At the center of it all is my own little family, growing now with daughters-in-law and grandchildren. And here's an image. My husband and I were married when we were 20 years old, so we've had time to get attached. Lately, when I was in the midst of a tough cancer procedure, I tried to do what you're supposed to do. Imagine a peaceful place, make use of relaxation techniques, listen to soothing music, that sort of thing. I ran through the list, but nothing helped. Finally, I conjured up my husband's hand resting lightly on my back. That's what worked. All this connection in the face of letting go leaves me in a bit of a pickle, a paradox. Committed as I am to the mandatory process of detaching, I grow more attached to living, the reclining Buddha in my bedroom notwithstanding. Eventually, of course, the problem will take care of itself. Overall, to be frank, I find aging, not to mention death, a preposterous state of affairs. Not at all the way I would have set it up. I'm not angry about it or especially sad. That's just the way it works. Indeed, in spite of the prospect of aging and death, for now, inexplicably, I feel happy. And with any luck at all, I always will.
And indeed, freely we have received, freely give for the good work of this congregation within and far, far beyond these walls. Our offering will now gratefully be received.
Stunning, thank you. Feel a bit faint, but other than that. Now, I'm guessing that most of you bathed this morning, or at least last night, or at least last week. The reason I'm asking is because I read a study a number of years ago about how various religious communities rank values. It won't surprise you to learn that Roman Catholics, for example, rank obedience very high, whereas Jews and Unitarian Universalists valued independent thought above most everything else. But obedience was not the thing that we valued least either. The thing that Unitarian Universalists valued least was hygiene. I see a few of you trying unobtrusively to slide away from one another, but it's not going to work. We're all you used here. No escape. I've been thinking about hygiene lately. Partly that's because, as you know, I work in the field of human rights. The truth is there is a very direct connection between bathing and human rights. The early Christian church thought that bathing was a sign of pomposity, of thinking yourself better than others. It's said that during medieval times, Europe went for 1,000 years without a bath. But around about the 14th century, something changed. As the historian Lynn Hunt puts it, individuals increasingly felt the need to keep their bodily excretions to themselves. Defecation and urination in public, for example, became increasingly repellent. People began to use their handkerchiefs rather than blowing their noses into their hands. Spitting, eating out of a common bowl, sleeping in a bed with strangers became disgusting or at least unpleasant. And these changes in attitude toward the body all signaled the advent of the self-enclosed individual whose boundaries had to be respected. And so you see, as people felt the need to respect one another's physical boundaries, the notion of human rights emerged. Think about it. If somebody smells disgusting, it's a lot easier to conclude that they are disgusting. And if somebody is thought to be disgusting, it's a lot easier to be unkind to them or to do them harm. I once knew a minister, the pages of whose Bible had a tendency to stick together. They were that very old-fashioned, very thin type of Bible page. And reading from Genesis one Sunday morning, the minister intoned, "And when Noah was 120 years old, he took unto himself a wife who was," and then turning the page, but not realizing she had turned 2 pages rather than 1, "a wife who was 140 cubits long, 40 cubits wide, built of gopher wood and covered with pitch inside." Well, it's not a coincidence that it took a lot longer to establish rights for women, whose bodies, though not covered with pitch, do such things as menstruate and give birth to children, which males thought for centuries as unseemly. So it's pretty short-sighted of Unitarian Universalists who claim to care a lot about rights to disparage hygiene, the care and feeding of the body. And it's ironic, too, because our religion has always claimed to care more about the body than the soul. We care about bodies. That's why we unashamedly teach our children about sexuality. It's why we abhor corporal punishment, torture. We're so loath to restrain our kids' physical exuberance that coffee hour sometimes feels like a NASCAR rally. We dissociate our religion from those religions that frown upon the carnal. But why do so many religions elevate the spirit high above the physical? Why do Orthodox Christians and Jews and Muslims, even if they have nothing else in common, think of bodies, particularly women's bodies, as dangerous vessels of iniquity? Why is the ultimate goal of nirvana understood by Buddhists and Hindus alike to be a release from attachment to the needs of the flesh? Well, at the most basic level, it is because bodies decay and die, and the spirit, at least theoretically, lasts forever. Our bodies ultimately betray us all, but that which cannot be touched, cannot be captured, cannot be physically felt, spiritual things like honor and faith and hope and grace and love, these things can only be experienced, never touched. And these things, unlike our bodies, will, we hope, never change. These things, the things of the Spirit, will, we pray, always be the same. So that's the other reason I've been thinking about bodies lately, and especially my own. Because as I turned 65 8 weeks ago, and as I contemplate retirement from full-time employment in 18 more months, and as my health issues accumulate, and as the whiff of mortality becomes ever more pungent, it seems about time to figure out how it's really important to be in whatever precious time I have left. I know, 65 is the new 45. I know that. I know that Ralph Waldo Emerson, upon turning 70, and hearing the poet James Russell Lowell call it an auspicious occasion, replied, on the contrary, Lowell, it is a melancholy one. It means the end of youth. But I think it is important to acknowledge that 65 is 25 years older than 45, and that at 71 is no longer a youth. Tolstoy said that old age is the most unexpected of things that happen to a person. I don't want to be surprised by my age being what it is. I want to embrace that which I cannot prevent. Please notice that I said I need to decide how it's important to be in the face of my aging, not what it's important to do, because though this is the time of life when people are supposed to be drawing up bucket lists of all they want to accomplish before they kick the proverbial bucket, I think a much tougher assignment is to figure out how to prepare oneself for the kick itself. I often hear from retired men, and it's always men, not women, who say, I'm so busy now in retirement, I don't know how I had time to work. Few of them are honest enough to admit that one of the reasons they're so busy is that they have so many more doctor's appointments. But most of them are so busy because they are so terrified of stillness. I don't want to be like that. I've seen that picture show for more than 40 years. I want to be able to say, life is calm enough now that I can hear myself breathe. A friend of mine of about my age was lamenting all the books that she hadn't read over a lifetime. You're a well-educated person compared to most. I said, why does it bother you so much? She looked at me as if I was crazy. Well, she said, you want to die well-informed, don't you? So I've been contemplating how I want to be in the face of that cogent observation by the actor Stan Freberg that we're all just penciled in. And I've decided that I want to live the rest of my life as the model house guest. Because up until this point, I've lived my life as if I were the host, as if I were the one who owned the house, provided the charm, and planned the events. But the truth is that none of us are hosts. We're all guests, just penciled in. So how does a model house guest behave? I think this metaphor has something for each of you, whatever the stage of your lives. First, a model house guest arrives on time and full of cheer. Now, of course, none of us controls when we arrive on Earth. We are, to use a phrase from the philosopher Martin Heidegger, who, despite having been a Nazi, had a few worthwhile things to say, we are, as Heidegger puts it, simply thrown into the world. And we land wherever we land. In this sense, James Broughton in the frontispiece on your order of service is entirely correct. This is it, and I am it, and so is that, and he is it, and she is it, and that is that. Whenever we arrive on Earth is the right time. On December 26, 1862, 38 Sioux Indians were hanged in Mankato, Minnesota on orders of President Lincoln. As they mounted the scaffold, each of them shouted their names in their native tongue, and then, "I'm here! I'm here! I'm here!" Somehow it made it all right for them. So when the house guests arrive, what do they shout? They shout, "We're here!" And their arrivals, they're being here, like the arrivals of new babies, carry new promise, offer good cheer, make it all right. But second, a model house guest brings more than a shout, more than an announcement of her arrival. She brings a house gift, right? Conger Elandar, who died in 2013, was the world's most famous Tuvan throat singer. Throat singing is even a little more rare than harmonica playing. Throat singing is that mysterious vocal art in which, through manipulation of the mouth and tongue and throat, a singer produces as many as 4 notes at the exact same time. It's practiced only in Central Asia. Tuva is a region in southern Siberia. It's been compared to a harmonious marriage of a vacuum cleaner and a bumblebee. Needless to say, it is very rare. And Andar perfected it while serving 4 years in a brutal Soviet penal colony. When he was released in 1992, he made an international career out of his unusual talent, even singing for Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Shortly before Andar died, he recalled that after his performance for Yeltsin, President Yeltsin ran up to him and demanded that he open his mouth wide. Peering in, Yeltsin refused to believe that Andar had not hidden some secret device in the back of his throat. I love that image of Boris Yeltsin, no doubt many vodkas under his belt, peering deep into the throat of Andar. But the gifts we guests bring to life need not be as unusual as Andar's. A garden, a meal, a smile, a kiss. As late as 1920, in some small towns in the United Kingdom, there continued to be employed people called knocker-uppers. The job of a knocker-upper is not what all you of dirty mind are thinking of. A knocker-upper served as a human alarm clock, walking through the village at dawn, tapping on people's windows with a special stick. We all bring our gifts. And then third, a model house guest doesn't hole up in a room, but enters into the spirit of the occasion, engages with others, and picks up after himself at the end of the visit. A good house guest is a model citizen. She doesn't expect to be waited on. He insists on serving and caring about others. In his touching little story, The Falls, George Saunders tells of 2 men, one named Cummings and one named Morse, who happened to be standing on opposite sides of a river when they spy 2 little girls alone on a raft drifting toward the falls, toward their doom. Cummings, a bachelor, regards himself as an artist, a philosopher, a deep thinker. And when he sees the girls waving frantically, he thinks, I really must do something. But he does nothing. Morse is a conventional guy with a small family. Saunders calls him a dullard in corporate pants, trudging home to his threadbare brats in the gathering loam. When he sees the raft, Morse starts to run after them, but quickly concludes that nothing can be done to save them. And yet he thinks to himself, What would become of the mother, who this morning had dressed the girls in matching sweaters? How would she cope? Soon her girls would be nude and bruised. It was unthinkable. He thought of his son nude and bruised. It was unthinkable what to do. He fiercely wished he was elsewhere. The girls saw him now, and with their hands they appeared to be explaining that they would be dead soon. My God, did they think he was blind? Did they think he was stupid? Did they think he was Christ? They were frantically calling out to him, but they were dead. And he was alive. He was needed at home. It was a no-brainer. No one could possibly blame him for not rescuing them. And making a low sound of despair in his throat, he kicked off his loafers and threw his long, ugly body out across the water. Morse knows he cannot save the girls, and he dies in the trying, but to close his heart to their suffering, to preserve his body at the expense of his soul, would be a fate worse than death. A good house guest need not make Morse's sacrifice, but she must do what little she can to make glad the lives of those who travel with her and to clean up her mess at the end. Because, of course, the end always comes, and the fourth characteristic of a good house guest is not to overstay his welcome. As the novelist Richard Ford put it, at some point, you just need to leave the theater so the next crowd can see the movie. Move aside, Jane. It's not your turn anymore. I don't pretend this is easy. Knowing exactly when our turn is over, of course, and how to make a polite exit is one of the toughest tasks of being human. But whenever it is, there is one last characteristic of the model house guest who has arrived promptly and in good spirits, brought a gift, engaged with the community, and left in a timely fashion. And this last is the most important. For the model house guest always writes a thank you note. Always expresses gratitude. Huge, audacious, unfettered gratitude for the blessings of the visit. I've not always been very good at that, feeling and expressing gratitude. But as the days shorten, I am getting much better. For the immense good fortune of having the parents who bore me, for those who surrounded me with love as I grew, for my education, for my mentors, for my profession, for the bounty of my experiences, for the privilege of occasionally touching another's heart, for the privilege of having tried to make a few others' lives more livable, for my beloved companions, for Paris, for raspberries, for merchants who actually seem pleased to have your business, for the beauty of creation, and most of all, for that beauty's manifestation in one named death. A year ago Christmas, some dear friends, elderly ones, ended their holiday note to us with the words, "We try not to regret growing older because it is a privilege that was denied to too many people we loved." Last April, Ethan learned that his cancer had returned. He did not have long to live. 2 months before he died, nearly 250 people joined Judy and him at what they called a party before party. He said it was the outstanding day of his life. "I don't fear death," he said, "and I'm not counting on heaven because I can't conceive of that, though I am prepared to be pleasantly surprised." But just in case we won't be, our final task, good house guests that we be, is to hug our friends and kiss our families and revel in a sunny day. Because this is it, and that is that. And our job is to understand that it and that are both so rich, they are both so green, they are both so sweet, so exquisitely, indelibly, heart-achingly sweet, that it's and that's enough. They're enough. Let's sing hymn number 108.
This is the evening Gatha, the evening prayer intoned every evening at the Zen Mountain Monastery. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly. Away. Away. Do not squander your life. May it be so.